Hi, I'm Shannon, and I'm a conflict resolution specialist. I teach conflict resolution and communication skills for everyday people like you and me who just want to create a little more peace and harmony in their lives. And just a quick note, everything I share here is for educational purposes only. It's not individualized advice, but I hope it gives you tools you can use in your own life. Most people don't go into difficult conversations trying to start a fight. In fact, most of us go in with good intentions. We want to feel understood, respected, or closer to the other person. Yet, so many of these conversations seem to go off the rails. In this video, I'm going to talk about why that happens, and more importantly, what you can do to stay focused on the goals that really matter to you during a difficult conversation. To do that, I'm going to walk you through a common relationship scenario that many people can relate to. After that, I'll share a simple framework you can use before or even during a challenging conversation to keep it from turning into a power struggle. So consider the following scenario. John and Emily have been together for several years, and they both work full-time. Over the past few months, Emily has been handling most of the scheduling, planning, and day-to-day coordination for their shared life. John contributes in his own ways, but the division of responsibility hasn't really been talked about explicitly. One evening, Emily brings up how overwhelmed she's been feeling lately, hoping that John will understand how much she's holding and be willing to share the load more intentionally. She lays out all of the things she's been doing for the relationship and implies that she's overwhelmed because John is not doing his share. She uses phrases like, "You never pick up after yourself," or "When was the last time you even planned a date night?" She's hoping for acknowledgement and reassurance that they're a team. As the conversation starts, John hears criticism and feels blindsided. He believes he contributes a lot already, like all the yard work and planning he does. And immediately he feels defensive and unseen and worries that he's being judged as lazy or uncaring. The conversation shifts into specifics and justifications, comparing who handles which tasks, how often things get done, and who's doing more of what. As they talk, both begin referencing earlier disagreements and moments where they felt let down by the other. As the tension increases, so do the interruptions, and neither of them is really hearing what the other is saying. The focus has become winning. Eventually, the original topic gets buried under frustrations and excuses, and the conversation ends without any clear resolution. Emily feels exhausted and disconnected. John feels frustrated and misunderstood, and they both feel confused. Most of us have experienced situations like this before, where it seems like the conversation starts out about one thing and then becomes about something completely different. Even when we're clear of our goal or intention going into a difficult conversation, it can be a challenge to maintain that focus throughout the conversation, especially as emotions rise. We tend to go into fight or flight mode, which means our focus becomes more about competition or escape, and we forget all about the healthy intention we set at the start of the conversation. In my last video, I talked in depth about the biological changes that occur in our bodies during conflict and how these changes can impact our behavior. If you're interested in learning more about that, I've put the link to that video in the description. So now consider the scenario with Emily and John. Emily's intention at the start of that conversation was to feel like she and John were a better team. However, as both her emotions and John's emotions began to escalate, the goal for both of them became to be right and to win. Now you might be thinking, Shannon, is there even any point in setting a goal or intention before a difficult conversation if my biology is just going to mess it all up anyway? And the answer is yes. There are definitely strategies that people can and do use to help them stay focused on what matters most during a difficult conversation. And I'm going to share a couple of those strategies with you right now. So let's start at the beginning. As I've already alluded to, the first step when trying to stay focused during a challenging conversation is setting your own goal for what you want or need from the conversation. So ask yourself, what do I really want here? This can be done prior to a difficult conversation that you want to prepare for, or during a difficult conversation you're already having, if you find that you and the other person are beginning to slip out of healthy dialogue. For Emily, her goal was that she wanted to be acknowledged for everything she was doing and to know that she and John will be able to work as a team going forward when planning and scheduling their lives. The problem for Emily, and for most people, is that they often stop after they've answered that first question, which leaves the picture incomplete. The next question to ask yourself is, what do I really want for the other person? In Emily's situation, perhaps what she wanted for John during the conversation was for him to be able to understand where Emily was coming from while still feeling valued and loved in the relationship. Had Emily considered this question more carefully before or during the conversation with John, she may have chosen to change her approach and use I statements to relay how she had been feeling to John, instead of accusing him of not putting in effort. The third question to ask yourself before or during a difficult conversation is, what do I really want for the relationship? In Emily's case, perhaps her answer to that question would be that she wants the relationship to be balanced and harmonious, where both people are showing up and putting in effort. Perhaps John's answer to that question would be that he wants both people in the relationship to feel valued and like it's safe to communicate their needs to the other. Regardless of the answer, knowing your answer is important so that you can recognize when you might be starting to engage in behavior that gets in the way of that goal. Which brings me to the final question to ask yourself before or during a challenging conversation, which is, how would I behave if I really wanted to meet these goals? So returning to Emily and John, because they didn't know to ask themselves these questions yet, neither of them behaved in ways that were conducive to them achieving what they really wanted or needed in that conversation. The conversation became about talking over one another and winning. Now let's pretend for a moment that prior to this conversation, Emily had just watched this video, and before the conversation starts, she reflects on the 4 questions I went through earlier. Because she does this, going into the conversation, she's clear that what she wants is for her and John to be able to work as a team when planning and scheduling their lives, and that she wants John to be able to hear that while still feeling valued and respected. To do this, she reflects on how she should behave during the conversation to achieve this goal. She decides that she will use I statements to describe how and why she's been feeling overwhelmed, express appreciation for the person John is and the good things he brings to the relationship, and let him know that it is her hope and goal in this conversation to come up with a solution where both people feel valued and taken care of. Now, because Emily has approached this conversation without accusations and with respect for who John is and what he brings to the table, John is able to hear what Emily's trying to express to him without getting defensive. Because he's not defensive, he's also able to recognize that finding a solution to this issue that leaves both people feeling valued and taken care of is beneficial to everyone. So he's able to have a productive conversation with Emily about how to balance things out better, and he's willing to make some changes. Now, this is just an example, of course, and not every conversation is going to go this way. But this does highlight the positive changes that can take place when we do a little self-reflection before or during a difficult conversation. I can safely say that I've never seen a conversation get worse after engaging in this kind of self-reflection, but I have certainly seen the harmful impacts of not engaging in this thinking. So, if you take anything from this example, let it be this. Most difficult conversations don't fall apart because people don't care. They fall apart because people lose sight of what they actually want once emotions take over. When we pause long enough to ask ourselves what we want for ourselves, for the other person, and for the relationship, we give ourselves a way back to that original intention. Not perfectly, not every time, but often enough to change the direction of the conversation. This kind of self-reflection doesn't guarantee a good outcome, and it doesn't mean the other person will respond the way we hope. What it does do is help us show up in a way that's more aligned with our values, and that alone can make conflict feel less damaging and more workable. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, feel free to like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need it. And remember, small shifts in how we communicate can create big shifts in our relationships. I'll see you in the next video.